Hi, everyone, and welcome to Transverse News, your weekly trans and LGBT news source here on the Transverse. I'm your host, Emily, and with me tonight is my co-host, Alexis Vandam. Hello, Alexis. All good. It's always fun. We do these shows and we have a good time. And it looks like for some reason um, the audio output was muted. So go ahead and try again. Say hi to everyone.
Hello.
There we go. Okay, good. Always fun. Always really fun with the self-produced shows when I'm doing it and trying to do everything. For some reason today, going into it, folks, everything was broken. So I thought we would be ready to go live a little bit earlier, but here we are. Anyways, Alexis is going to take over and do a new segment. It's not going to be exactly Project 2025, but it's more about, just basically what's going on in the attacks against trans folks. So without anything else, an intro, let's go ahead and give it over to Alexis. Take it away.
All right. Well, as Emily just noted, I'm going to be shifting away from the broad summaries of different kinds of attack plans laid out in Project 2025 and focusing more on the preemptive strikes that legislators, governors, judges, justices, and the like are currently launching against the community in line with Project 2025 and on occasion Donald Trump's own campaign promises. Um, and because the man will seemingly never go to fucking jail and may be just days away from receiving a very undeserved all clear from the Supreme Court as far as the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling on his eligibility to run for president are concerned, and is neck and neck with Joe Biden, thanks in large part to Joe Biden's absolute refusal to stop sponsoring the bombing of kids in Gaza while attacking 3 other countries in the region on his own. This refocusing of our lenses seems far more appropriate than it ever should. Anyway, we'll start off with the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles' recent unilateral action on driver licenses. In case you're new, Florida Governor and glitchy Tesla android Ron DeSantis and his basket of Neuralink recipients in the Florida state government have a habit of inventing new ways to take the attacks against the existence of trans people into their own hands. And unfortunately, this appears to be yet another example of that, and it might be the worst one yet. So on January 26th, the aforementioned department released a new policy which not only banned the alteration of gender markers on driver licenses, but also threatened trans people who had already had their markers changed with imminent prosecution and the revocation of their licenses. Quote, furthermore, the term gender does not refer to a person's internal sense of his or her gender role or identification, but has historically and commonly been understood as a synonym for sex, which is determined by innate and immutable biological and genetic characteristics. Additionally, a driver license is an identification document and, as such, serves a critical role in assisting public and private entities in correctly establishing the identity of a person presenting the license. Permitting an individual to alter his or her license to reflect an internal sense of gender role or identity, which is neither immutable nor objectively verifiable, undermines the purpose of an identification record and can frustrate the state's ability to enforce its laws. Furthermore, misrepresenting one's gender, understood as sex, on a driver license constitutes fraud and subjects an offender to criminal and civil penalties, including cancellation, suspension, or revocation of his or her driver license. So, first thing I want to get out of the way right now, this is a travel ban. This is a travel ban. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a travel ban. If you are trans or gender nonconforming and you are caught driving your own goddamn vehicle while you're in possession of a license that reflects your identity, you are probably either getting fined or going to prison or both. Like I said, this goes for trans people and it also goes for gender nonconforming people. Really, the only way you can possibly get through this if you're trans is if you are the most cis passing person ever. So here's the thing as well. Not only this, right? So you're getting fined or going to jail if you're trans. You're probably at least going to jail for a little while and then having to fight like hell if you're gender nonconforming. and have your license suspended and things like that. Not only that, though, if you think this travel ban only applies to the operation of a motor vehicle, you're wrong. Think about the way police officers operate in this country. They're not only allowed to establish probable cause on the fly and conduct searches based on that, but they're known for bullshitting probable cause on the fly as well. This means that if you're openly trans or gender nonconforming and you're out in public, including just checking your own mailbox, and a police officer decides you don't look like a typical male or female, or just feels like picking on somebody because they don't look a certain way, that police officer can demand to see your license and arrest you on the spot. Same thing if you present a license to a landlord or a rental facility, and that person behind the counter or that landlord decides to report you for similar reasons. Same thing if you're staying at a hotel. Same thing could even apply if you present your license to the fucking DMV because you want to change it back. Quote: the department can issue a replacement license only when a license or permit is lost or stolen, or when there is a subsequent change in the licensee's name, address, or restrictions. So, in other words, not only are you screwed if you are trans in Florida with a driver's license, but you cannot unscrew yourself if you remain in the state. So, they don't even let you change it back. And even if they did create a policy to let you change it back, you'd more than likely end up on a registry. That is likely the point of this whole thing. So, this is it, y'all. Right here. This is what West Virginia tried and failed to do with two of their Senate bills last year, and what they're already trying to do again this year. It's a ban on being in public if you are trans. And as Alejandra Caraballo put it on Twitter, this is the show me your papers policy for trans people in the state of Florida. Period. Kaput. End of story. There's no argument to be had here. When people like Aaron Reed slap a do not travel label on the state of Florida, you should probably listen to that, especially now, because they're very much closing in on the trans population of that state, and they won't hesitate to arrest tourists as well. So, big bold letters here. Do not travel to the fucking state of Florida. Instead, focus your efforts on getting people out of the state of Florida. On top of this, in case we needed anything else, we have House Bill 599, which states the quote, it is the policy of the state that a person's sex is an immutable biological trait, and that it is false to ascribe to a person a pronoun that does not correspond to such person's sex, and imposes the following restrictions against employers and employees that have anything to do with state or local governments. Quote, an employee or a contractor may not be required, as a condition of employment, to refer to another person using that person's preferred personal title or pronouns if such personal title or pronouns do not correspond to that person's sex. An employee or a contractor, it's number 2, may not provide to an employer his or her preferred personal title or pronouns if such preferred personal title or pronouns do not correspond to his or her sex. So it's a blatant restriction on free speech in the state of Florida. Yet another one, but this is one of the more egregious ones. Number 3, an employee or a contractor may not be asked by an employer to provide his or her personal title or pronouns, or be penalized or subjected to adverse personnel action for not providing his or her preferred personal title or pronouns. Number 4, it is an unlawful employment practice for an employer to take adverse personnel action against an employee or a contractor because of the employee's or contractor's deeply held religious or biology-based beliefs, including a belief in traditional or biblical views of sexuality and marriage, or the employee's or contractor's disagreement with gender ideology, whether those views are expressed by the employee or contractor at or away from the worksite. So, do you notice what protection? I mean, fuck the rest of this bill, to be honest, obviously. But do you notice what provision is missing? Protections for people who do believe that same sex marriage is okay and do believe that trans people should be treated with respect. Absolutely zero protections for them. And while, yes, there are many biological bases for same sex attraction and being transgender and more are being discovered all the damn time, we all know that's not going to count as biology based in the eyes of these totalitarian bastards. And if you want to speak out against any of this, good fucking luck, because in Senate Bill 1780, if it passes, defamation per se, which is a set of terms and accusations that are automatically considered defamation in civil court, it's a special class of defamation, would be redefined to include accusations of anti LGBTQ bigotry, discrimination, and racism, and impose penalties of up to $35,000 on people who dare to make such accusations against anybody. So, in other words, we are banning trans people and gender nonconforming people, in effect, from driving, from renting property, from voting. Didn't mention that one before, but that one too. From voting, from going to their own mailbox, from giving their pronouns to an employer of the state or local government or whatever. We are essentially banning people who are allies of the community or part of the community, and they express views that contradict those of the fascist state of Florida in any medium, social media or in person, if they are an employee or a employer of the state or the local governments. And then on top of that, we are banning the accusation of transphobia, the accusation of homophobia, the accusation of racism. So you can't even protest your own government anymore. That's if these bills pass. Obviously, they haven't yet, but it's Florida. So 2 plus 2 equals 5, probably according to them, but it equals 4 to everyone else. So, yeah, this is a summary of some of the attacks, some of the most egregious attacks by the state of Florida that are in accordance with Project 2025, which of course is supposed to remove all protections for the LGBTQ plus community, to legislate trans people out of the law. And this, by the way, is just one state of many that are attempting to do things like this. We'll get to some of them in the show later, but there are some we may not get to today. Like, for example, Iowa. Iowa, I'll have to look up the bill number because I forgot it, but Iowa is rushing through a bill which would strip civil rights protections away from transgender people. HSB 649. They are rushing this through. We just got this a couple hours ago. It was scheduled for a subcommittee tomorrow with less than 24 hours notice. This bill was introduced by the governor of the state herself. So, yeah. Georgia, by the way, and we'll cover a lot of these. I'll cover at least a lot of these in more detail later on. But Georgia just introduced a bill yesterday. That bill is HB 1128, which not only removes all civil rights protections for LGBTQ people, but also removes hate crimes protections for LGBTQ people. In other words, you can be targeted if this bill passes for, assault, home invasion, murder, whatever, because you are gay or trans or LGBTQ in general or perceived to be. And it would no longer be classified as a hate crime. So, again, we'll cover a lot of these in more detail as time goes on, but just know we are seeing the implementation of Project 2025 as we speak. They are not waiting for the presidential election. We didn't figure they would. But at the same time, They are setting the stage right here and now, adhering directly to the project itself. So, I don't know, y'all. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't know what Floridians in general are supposed to do to get through this. I don't think there is the way to get through it in the state of Florida. I think it really is either, I hate to say it, but it really has come down to either stay in the closet until you can get out of the state of Florida, or if you're already out, get the fuck out, because there is no fighting back against this. I know people always talk about staying and fighting, but we are so far beyond that point in the state of Florida, and we are nearing that point in a lot of other states as well.